This is episode 27 of the Hybrid Coaching Podcast. In this episode, JK and I talk about what we're reading, what we're listening to, and what our influences for coaching are, as well as if we were doing hybrid fitness before it was this buzzword of hybrid fitness. We also discuss post-race. What happens to your digestive system? Can you sleep after a race? And what do you do to combat that? Let's make hybrid fitness work for you. How you doing today, JK?
I am very well, Anthony.
Good.
Sore, but if I wake up on a Friday morning feeling fresh, there's something gone wrong.
Nice.
How are you feeling?
Oh, well, I'm very sore, but I was expected to be because if anybody wants to know, I haven't been lifting. I've just been running for a while. And this week I started lifting again, just bench press and back squats. And the first night after benching, I was like really sore in my whole chest. Well, the second night actually, really sore in my whole chest. I couldn't get comfortable because my arms, and then like after that, my legs just got all real sore from the squats. There wasn't that many, like it wasn't that big a squatting session. I don't understand why, but it's just something that, I haven't been doing it. Finally went and did it. It'd been like a month since I've actually been fully lifting, doing our lifting sessions. So, getting back into it, man, it made me pretty sore to start with.
But then also you did 300 wall balls straight afterwards as well.
Well, yeah, so I did 300 wall balls yesterday, but that actually wasn't so bad and it was controlled. I did 10 rounds of 300-meter run, 30 wall balls. It's a birthday workout, so it's fun. 10:30.
Good fun. How was Lauren's birthday? Happy birthday to your wife.
Yep. Well, it was good. I don't think I actually told you this, JK. Her and I share a birthday.
What?
Yeah.
It was your birthday yesterday as well.
It was both our
Oh,
birthdays. Um,
how didn't we know that? I'm so annoyed.
so I usually
Happy
just tell
birthday.
people, if they ask, "Oh, it's somebody's birthday?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's Lauren's birthday." And um
What?
just
Anthony, you're so what?
so
Because
uh
like obviously like in our day and age, like you see it on Instagram, right? People like, post things about Instagram, like your birthday on Instagram. And I only saw Lauren's birthday. Happy birthday, Anthony. I can't believe that.
so this is like birthday time for my family. My little sister's birthday is today.
Yeah.
I had an uncle whose birthday was also yesterday. Um, Other people, Chris Verglosky, who is in the hybrid space, her birthday was yesterday as well.
Wow.
It's the day to be born.
Oh, I'm so annoyed. I'm annoyed at you as well. You should have told me.
I usually don't broadcast it. I like that her and I get to share a birthday. It's really fun.
Well, happy belated birthday, mate.
It's unique.
And yeah, you did that workout on your birthday as well, so rightly so. Shall I ask who's older or not? We'll
I'm one
we'll
year older.
You're 1 year older.
Yeah.
1 year wiser.
Yeah, she's probably still wiser. So let's get into this episode today, guys. We're talking and we have a couple questions we're going to ask each other first, and then we're going to get into just a little topic brought up of post race. What your guts feel like, why they feel like that. Do you sleep after? What matters after the race? Does anything matter, right? So we'll get into that, and then what do you do, day after the race, couple hours after the race, minutes after the race. See, we'll just do a quick talk on that for post race. Because it's the season now. Everybody seems to have races coming up, and everybody talks about the lead in to the race and their taper and everything. And after you do that big exertion and performance, what do you do after? That's the question,
Yeah.
right? So
So
that's what we'll get
key.
into.
Yep.
Before we get into that, a couple questions were brought up that we're just gonna ask each other again here. JK, what are you reading?
I'm not a big reader. I'm not a big reader. I listen to a lot of audiobooks though, so I'm not sure if I can say that that's reading. But I'll be honest with you, I've really struggled to get into reading all my life. I think the last book I probably read was in high school, to be completely honest with you. So yeah, to cut it short, I'm reading nothing right now, Anthony. How about yourself? I hope you have a better answer than me, mate.
So I've kind of blended this because we also asked what are you listening to, and it's kind of blended because
Well,
I'll do both. But in terms of reading, I do have access to a scientific journal. Am a published I've published my own paper in the construction field and contributed to another. So I still have access to like the scientific journal access, and but I'll read different articles. I'll read different training books. So like some of the books that I have that I like to read is like The Science of Running by Steve Magnus,
yep.
Triphasic Training by Cal Dietz. Um, I have a couple triathlon training books. So like I'll get into those. I'll look at them. I'll read through them, just a couple pages here and there, uh, until I finish the book, and then I can go back and reference and stuff. But I like to note and highlight things as well. But also I love to learn, and so I try to get as much as I can from these scientific studies and other things, just other sources, you know. In terms of like actually reading as well, we actually listen to this one, but it's audiobooks, so we'll listen to like some audiobooks. I really like fantasy books. Lauren really likes fantasy books, and so like growing up, obviously there was like Harry Potter. If you don't know, both of our dogs and our daughter have character names from Harry Potter. Um, we have Willow, or the dog is after the Whomping Willow. Fox is our other dog. He's named after the Phoenix, and Lily. And there's a bunch of reasons her name is Lily, but it's also Lily Potter. Harry Potter's mother is named Lily. So just kind of works out like that. That there's a lot of that around. But other fantasy books that I read growing up were like the Aragon series, like Inheritance Cycle there, um, Maximum Ride, things like that. So I got into all these, and then kind of last year, Lauren was reading. I like to read whatever Lauren is reading, so I can talk to her about it and take an interest in what she's reading and listening to. You know, so like, oh, tell me about your book. Let's have a conversation about it. Well, that's how I started reading the fantasy fairy smut. Uh, we call it. It's all these books by an author named Sarah J. Maas, and it's not short books. There's three different series. There's a Throne of Glass, Court of Thorns and Roses, and Crescent City. And the series are like the first one, Throne of Glass, is like 7 books. Court of Thorns and Roses is like 5 books. Crescent City's 3 books. I read them all once through, and I was like a book behind Lauren, so we could listen to them at the same time on Audible. And she's gone through them like 3 times. But yeah, I call them fantasy fairy smut because they'll have like sex scenes in the book, which is just
That's so
funny. But
funny.
it's they're still fantasy books. They're good, just adult fantasy books. Fairy
Adult fantasy books.
about fairies.
Yeah, Georgie and I don't share that hobby together
Yeah.
yet. There's a few books that Georgie reads that she tells me about that sound a little bit adult fantasy. But I don't know if I'm there. I don't know if I'll ever be there. But in terms of audiobooks, like I listen to a lot of coaching audiobooks and as well as like biographies and stuff. I'm actually listening to it's called The Coaching Habit, by Michael Stanleyer. It's interesting. It's really cool about like just general coaching and how to get the most out of a individual. Have you heard of Green Lights by Matt
Yep.
McConaughey?
I've listened to Green Lights and audiobooks, and I guess we'll just jump right into the next question. What are you listening to? So this makes sense.
Yeah.
So, um, for the audiobooks and stuff, we'll go with that, and then we can go on to other portions.
Yeah,
Um,
so Green Lights, I finished that a while back, but I think that's still one of my favorite audiobooks that I've listened to. He gave me a lot of even more respect to what he's done and what he does, Matt McConaughey. But yeah, just a lot of like coaching stuff, a couple of like triathlon books that I've listened to as well. Yeah, like it's pretty and in terms of like podcasts, I don't listen to a lot of hybrid podcasts anymore. But I do enjoy listening to a few of the Norwegian method podcasts out there. Just about LT1 and sorry, like running and the double threshold methods and stuff like that. So yeah, Georgie and I have a bit of a laugh because she thinks that my podcasts are just boring,
she
just
thinks
about
the one you
running.
listen to, not this one, right? Just the ones you listen to.
Yeah, not this one. Apart from this one, of course.
So
But how about yourself?
yeah, I mean, just the books we talked about. I'll listen to those. I could go through. I got like the Witcher series and a bunch of other series on Audible right now, but I'll listen to podcasts, obviously. I like to consume like all the stuff in the hybrid fitness space. Like, we're a tech community, so everybody like I feel like it's supporting everybody else to be able to listen to them. And I won't just listen to them, like I'll do I'll go like their show, follow their show. I'll go write a review or rate it or do those things. And I usually do it for all the ones like around this space, and then any of them that have like the anonymous donations too. Like, but it's just like I feel like it's supporting the community, and a the bigger everything else gets, grows it to everybody else so that they can so everybody grows. But yeah, I'll listen to like all the hybrid podcasts, Rocks Life, Hybrid Sport Media, Race Brain, Rock Zone, Rad High Rocks, HFM, RMR, UKHXR, Fitness Racing Podcast, The Running Public, like all of them that are in there. But I also listen to other not hybrid podcasts like the Airy Bros and stuff, and they're about like wrestling and cross country mostly. Um, Really, if anybody's ever interviewed Lauren, I'll start following them, like complete human performance. I'll start following their podcast and listen to it from there on out. So that's usually how that goes. And then outside of hybrid, I'll listen to things like the Everything Everywhere Daily podcast, which is kind of fun and interesting. On my way to be part of the completionist club there, but it's a 15-minute podcast that's released every single day. And he just goes over history and uh, different topics of uh, knowledge, really. And it's just
Right.
interesting ones. So I listen to like that kind of stuff, and then the stuff you should know sometimes. And there's other like you could find a podcast for anything. So I look up like
Yeah, you can.
I've looked up like the um what's it called? Like wrestling podcast. I've looked up like civil engineering ones. I've listened to like the Diary of a CEO, like those types of podcasts. I listen to all of them. Kettlebells and cocktails. Like there's a geotechnical engineering podcast, and there's so many. There's podcasts about everything. So um, really just go out there and listen to them and listen to this one.
What's kettlebells and cocktails?
It's an old CrossFit podcast. It used
Ah,
to be
okay.
called it's John. Do you know who John Woolley is? He's the woolly mammoth. It used
Yeah.
to be make wads great again. Then he got
Oh
that
yeah.
Instagram page disbanded and he became woolly mammoth, woolly mammoth. Um, yeah, that's his podcast. Um,
Kettlebell.
but yeah,
Oh, yeah.
all right. Now, JK, where do you draw inspiration or experience from in hybrid fitness coaching? When you're coaching, when you're going through, what do you draw on?
So it's fascinating this concept or this question. I draw a lot of my first of all, I draw a lot of my knowledge and understanding from what I listen to. So I do don't I personally don't just listen to anything and everything or consume anything and everything. I personally take pride in what I listen to. So that's the first thing. Like I feel like over time, Anthony, I've learnt a lot by just like being a um being a being a like a nerd, not a nerd, but like wanting to just learn from others. So, all my like audio books that I listen to, I've learned from. And but in terms of like going back to the like, where do I get my inspiration from? I think it kind of all stems back to having a few coaches myself that have really helped me out over my athletic career, and always having that in the back of my head that I can always, or there's always my ability to change someone's life by being a really good coach. There's no one person or one athlete or one like performance that I actually get inspiration from. It's just like my history of being coached and then being a coach that kind of has like cemented like what I'm doing now, like and why it's so important to me. If that makes sense. Like I just quickly like I had a running coach back when I was 12 to 18, like during my high school, and Coach Gunny, and he was a big role model for me to be who I am today in terms of like a coach. So shout out to Coach Gunny. But yeah, I hope that kind of answered the question. Yeah, there's not, apart from him, there's no one athlete or one coach or that I get inspiration from. It's just like accumulating a lot of knowledge and understanding and taking what I want, but also leaving the rest, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. I've played sports a long time, coach sports now for a long time. But in terms of like where it came from, I was just thinking about this because last week in our episode, I mentioned that I dropped all that weight real fast, and then we had that 20 by 400 at in the evening as a part of our practice. And I was like, well, I kind of have realized that a long time ago, what is somebody capable of doing in a day? How can you blend things? Because if you were to go to like a cross country or a runner's just a runner um, practice or something, 20 by 400 might be their whole practice for the day. That'd be like the big workout of the week. For us, 25 400, we did that like once a month at 5 a.m. on a Friday, and then we'd still have a skills practice and a strength training session later in the day. Like that, those were just pieces of what it was. And so like kind of looking back, that's what we did. We don't have skills practice now per se, but we still took on that load of practice during the fitness we were building and all the different things we were doing. So kind of back then made me understand uh how to program, how to do that. And as far as the coaching piece goes, that was just like experience. I think I definitely most of my coaching growth literally came from Lauren. I don't know if she has like the highest emotional quotient EQ of anyone. It's very great about relating to people and empathetic with them, and that was more of a learned through my end. A lot
Yeah.
just by mostly by exposure to her and what she does and how I've seen her interact and work with people.
Yeah. And that's kind of, yeah, the more and more I think about it, the more I've just learnt as time goes on, right? And as I said, you take a lot from others, and I've done that. I'll be honest with you, like I don't want to sound too corny here, Anthony, but I've learnt so much from being coached by you the past 7, 8 months. But then also, as I said, like more so in the world of like there's so much content, there's so much information out there that I also take a lot, but also leave a lot, if that makes sense. You
Yeah.
kind of have to end up going your own way, especially in this hybrid space, because hell, like there's no one size fits all still, right? So we still have to kind of go about our job and being an athlete as well, like to the best of our ability.
Well, yeah, I absolutely
So
agree with
yeah,
that. I mean, you have to find somebody that works with you, right? Like, I'm not gonna be the coach for everybody. You can't be, and you got to find somebody that matches and blends your take, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. All right. So, did you do hybrid fitness before it was this buzzword?
I like this question because like 100% yes. Whether like I did I did like F45 training for so long, and who's to say that that type of hit training isn't isn't hybrid training like to an extent, right? Even before that, um strength and conditioning for my like Aussie rules football, that's technically there's components of that is definitely hybrid training. So yeah, it's funny because it is such a buzzword now. But it's not as if it's new either. So I've been doing hybrid for years and years upon end, to be honest.
Nice.
Um, how about yourself?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I just told you too. Like when we were doing college wrestling, it was. I mean, we'd do several times just an example day that we would have. It would be, hey, we have this 5 or 6 a.m. practice. It would be like 2 hours long. It could be running, it could be lifting and running, it could be like hand fighting drills, whatever it is. A lot of times it was like we'd go lift for an hour and then we'd go out to the turf fields and we'd like run sprints or run some laps or just go for a long run. We had a coach that like really liked to do long runs with us. And then you'd come back, you'd go to your classes. Like a lot of us had like 8 a.m. classes, so we'd go to an 8 a.m. class, usually like 8 and 11 and like noon or 1. And then we would also have like a 3 o'clock practice. And so you'd go to 3 o'clock practice, and that one would be like 2 or 3 hours long, where we'd sit there and like jog warm up around our mats, doing like calisthenics down one side or tumbling. Like so we do cartwheels and front rolls and backward rolls and um all these things down the side in the middle of the run. So you'd run and then you'd like forward roll down one side of the mat and then you'd keep running and then you'd duck walk the whole thing and then you'd run and you'd cartwheel one direction, run and cartwheel the other direction. So we would do that stuff as our warm-ups, and then like sometimes we'd have circuits. Back then we didn't call it CrossFit, we called it circuits. So we'd have like everybody spend 1 minute, you got 7 different stations and you spend a minute at each station. And the stations would be like rope climb people over here, back squats. We had air dynes in our room. We had a T-bar row. We had like lat pull downs and deadlifts. And the coaches would all have us spend about a minute at each station. And then we'd rotate and we'd do that multiple times. And then we do like skills and we work on skills for like 30 minutes where a lot of times what you do is to work on your skills too, you kind of do it at not like just easy pace. You would do it at our coaches would say, all right, I want you to give them like 75, 80% resistance so they can feel what it would be like. And you give them slow match resistance to it, right? And then we'd finish practice off usually with a couple of live matches or live goes. And sometimes if we got what it was called a red flag practice, we would go for like an hour long match and you'd have somebody that you'd wrestle for an hour straight. And it would be like,
The shit.
you don't break until the other person needs it. And so you'd sit there on the mat forever because nobody wants to admit they need it. Then if you're getting your butt kicked, you'd go get a drink of Gatorade, you both break, and then come back and immediately go back to live practice.
Well,
Those are just kind of things. And then a lot of times, like if it was the week of a tournament, or a week of a dual meet or something, and you had to weigh in by the end of the week, you'd have to control your weight. And so for me, what that meant is I'd usually have to go run every night after like those two practices. So like in
Yeah,
terms of
well,
what we were doing before hybrid fitness, it was like, oh, it's kind of the very similar stuff.
it's very similar, right? Yeah, very similar. Yeah, and you had that as a um, staple part of your life for so long that I'm assuming you've like probably you probably think you probably take things from your wrestling career and life, and you've put them into practice without knowing them now, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
um, so yeah, just because hybrid's the word now, it doesn't mean it's just come out or just been existed for
Yeah.
the last few years.
Well, and you can see like after that, I went to after college wrestling, it was like, oh, let's train for a marathon because I didn't I always thought gyms were expensive, and then I realized, oh, it's just part of life and staying healthy. But um, I just started training for a marathon, and I trained my parents for Ironmans, and it was like, what do you mean you don't want to work out for 4 or 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day? That's what we do, you know? It's like the
Yeah,
time in between the workouts is the downtime. That's the stuff that's weird. Usually we're just always moving.
always moving. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right.
We've established now what we read, what we listen to, little inspiration from coaching, and have we been doing hybrid fitness in the past, and what can that do? So now, JK, I'm excited here. What happens after you cross the finish line?
What happens? I'm exhausted. I'm I'm normally very happy and grateful. And here's the thing, like I don't want to sound too corny here, but I'm normally very kind of happy it's done, but also like proud of what I've achieved. But what happens after the finish line? Well, um, to me, like um, I'm a big believer of just because you've ran over the finish line doesn't mean like your job's done to a degree. And apart from seeing Georgie and saying hello to her, like um, the next couple of hours are just um, trying to trying to get your body to a point where it can sleep. Let's just put it that way, right?
Right.
And like I don't know if we start there, Anthony, because man, you've probably had it before. Your wife has definitely had it before, where we finish a race 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm still awake at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning because I'm just so wired. But to go back to the to go back to the question, oh, I try to like to go back to the question. What I try to do is soon as my race is finished is to rehydrate. Like in terms of performance, if that's something that I subconsciously know that I'm doing without doing it, if that makes sense. Um, I've never been a really good uh athlete in relation to cooling down. I'll be honest with you, but I have gotten better because and the only reason why I have gotten better because I can feel the difference as well. So cooling down is another thing, but um yeah. Like here's a question back to you. Like, what do you think is the most one like if there was one, oh, there's probably like seven, mate, but straight after a race, what if you could only like if you needed to focus on one thing, what would you focus on for recovery?
So covered a lot there, but I'd say that you've said this before. I've heard it from other athletes before too. After the race, your guts won't just settle down. Like you have gut issues for like a day after, you know? And it could just be like what you put in there beforehand. But you know, that nutrition you're getting is supposed to be fueling your performance like intra race. So it shouldn't be doing too much damage afterwards, but it can. And I looked up, you know, what would that be? What's some reasons that it might be affecting you? Nutrition wise. And it could be, you know, sometimes you have if you have a little caffeine before these late night races, that's maybe why you're staying up until 4 a.m. but or not sleeping. And because you're just gonna get a bunch of adrenaline anyways, especially in these elite races. But anybody out there racing, whether you have a morning race or a middle day race, night race, like usually once you get, you know, past about noon in these races, it becomes hard to sleep afterwards because uh, you're still wired from it, like you said. So you end up getting to bed a lot later than you mean to. And I'd say that as far as sleep goes, I think the most important thing for sleep or actually anything, go get your cool down done. That's why I write it in there. I write it in there for you,
I know,
JK. Say within
I
20
know.
minutes of finishing. I know you got to do like interviews and stuff, but within 20 minutes of finishing, you should be going back, lightly jogging, letting your body like just move, relax, let the blood shunt to different places. And you also need to like calm your body down because more likely than not, the state of exertion you were just in stimulated like a flight or fight or freeze response. And so what that can do actually is uh, is shut down some of your sympathetic nervous system, right? So, wait, sorry, parasympathetic. So, like when you're experiencing stress at that level, the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for the flight or fight. It's activated, and so there's blood flow redirection, which is the shunting I was talking about, right? Um, and then you slow down like different things and you focus on survival basically and getting exactly what needs to happen in your blood, right? So um your digestion when you're in that state of stress that you put yourself in, your digestion can significantly slow down or even stop temporarily, right? And then all of a sudden you finish, and if you finish and abruptly stop, your body's like, oh, and then it's like, okay, now need to go turn everything back on. We need to start like healing all these things that went wrong because we're no longer in a state of maximum stress. Like, and so you just get flooded with that, you know? Um, so go do your cool down. Like, let your body slowly work back into that. Let yourself get your digestion moving again. Um, and as far as like exerting more energy, just a little bit, getting rid of that like excess adrenaline that's still pumping through you. Um, let it come out in a good, healthy way, and then maybe it'll help you sleep a little bit. As far as like recovery afterwards too, um, same protocol as normal recovery. If you want to like use your race as a stimulus for your training, you need to be able to adapt it, right? So in order to adapt it, you have to be able to recover the way you would from any hard workout. So go do all of your recovery protocols, no matter what they are. If it's a massage for you, it's a massage for you. If it's whatever works for you, you should have known beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I am an athlete who, as soon as I finish a race, I get very hungry.
You should.
And I know for a fact, yeah, like I know for a fact not everyone is like that. So one thing that I do try to is make sure that I listen to that. There has been races where I haven't been on the front foot with knowing that's going to happen, and you know, 9, 10 o'clock at night, but hardly anything is open to get some nutrition or food. So I tend to neglect that. And then the next day, I end up having maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And the next day, I'm probably so much worse than what I could have been if I did actually eat. or at least have, even if it's liquid calories. So anyway, that's something that I've kind of learnt on the go as well. I think like what you said there, Anthony, is so key. Like your body has just been in a fight mode for an hour to an hour and a half, even. As soon as it stops over that finish line, it's like most people just, as you just said, stop. They don't end up warming down. They don't end up actually going through the process of winding your body down as opposed to um, just that like initial, stop. And things such as like um hydration to me is just like trying to get as much liquid, like sodium and whatnot into my system once again. And then obviously my intake of calories once again, but obviously like jumping back onto the spin bike for 10 to 15 minutes and then mobilizing is what I end up doing now, at least. Um, and then yeah, like as I always say this to my athletes, like sleep is the only thing when it comes down to it that matters with recovery, and trying to get to sleep after those races is the most important thing.
Yeah. And along that lines, we just talked about how like it's difficult to sleep. And part of that, of course, is, your stomach. Like you said you like to eat right away, which is really good. Get your digestion going again. Like that helps.
Again, yeah.
I'm really bad about that myself. I usually get really like next day hungry after big efforts because I till tend to like not eat after big efforts or something. Um, or just like have a little bit because I just don't want to stomach anything. But that's just part of it. So as far as the sleep goes, you want to get good sleep, recovery sleep, right? So probably not so much like medically aided sleep. You want to more or less like let your body do it. And so the cool down, the warm down, whatever you're gonna do to like let your body settle. When you see those, when you see people and when you do it yourself, you get to that finish line, you just like collapse and you're done. Um, you can do that. You can like do that to like recover for a minute. You should stand up and after like that minute, stand up, walk around, like let your muscles relax and move like slowly, get back into that little movement like you talked about, the being on the bike, being on the rower, the ski, going even for a very light jog. All that's
Yeah.
great.
I think one of the other things that I just kind of thought about, it was different in Amsterdam because Georgie wasn't with me, but I tend to I tend to want to get out of the actual arena as quickly as possible. We've been in the arena, obviously exerting ourselves for X amount of like minutes, close to an hour. But prior to that, we were warming up. We were in that arena with loud music, people coming up to us. So many external kind of like
So much
factors.
stimulation.
So much simulation that I remember after Cologne and then after Nice, I turned to Georgia and I was just like, I just need to get out of here. Um, and all I want to do is kind of like whether it is sit there or even just walk, but in silence, like literally with no sound. And it's fascinating. I just kind of thought about that. It's something that I obviously my body needs or comes over me at the time because there's so much simulation for that amount of time. Like, and it's not just the time that you've just done your Hyroxin, it's beforehand. It's the communication that you have with a lot of people as well on the go. So, like, that's something, yes, sure, like warming down in the warm-up area. But if you can do it somewhere else, then go back to your hotel room and actually go back to your hotel and use the gym at your hotel if you can. Or um yeah, it's the stimulation is the reason why we don't sleep right afterwards. Whether it is the caffeine that we have on top of the party that we have inside the arena as well. Um, so that's just like another observation from my end.
Yeah. And that goes on to the like the stress is stress, right? So if you're in a stressful environment, it doesn't just mean the stress you just put your body through too. Like if you're in a stressful environment, you need to relax that, get out of that, go to somewhere if for you that's the quiet place or something like that, then that's exactly what you need to do. Which is glad you brought that up. That's good.
on on this topic, like the other thing that I end up wanting to do, which is interesting now, and I think it's to do with having a very high volume program with you, Anthony, that the next day after a race, I actually my body tends to want to move. My body tends to feel like moving, whether I'm like sore or not, it's like, no, I need to kind of move. And that's the other thing. The next day after a sleep, um, you've got to realize that your body has you've put your body and your fitness through a lot, racing in a high rocks. But also one of the biggest ways to recover well is to move and not stay stationary. Um, and what that means for you is different for me, but multiple times recently after a race, Anthony, I've gone out for a light jog, or I've gone to the gym and walked on the treadmill even, or jumped on the bike, or done something to because my body is just telling myself, no, I need to get this blood moving again so that I can recover. Um, Rather than just, plonking myself on the couch and watching Netflix. No, my body wants to move. Yeah.
Yeah, and you should. I mean, even if you're sore, if you want your body to recover, be a little bit less sore, it's movement is medicine, right? So you want to have active recovery. I always prefer active recovery um, over just like sitting and laying. And that could be, maybe you don't want to run. Maybe you're so sore, or your like joints are stiff or something, and you go for a walk, ride the bike. I usually prefer something that's very low impact, but still will get you a little sweat. So ride a bike, go swimming, row, ski, whatever that is, elliptical. Those types of things could
Yeah.
really help.
Do you have anything that helps you to go off to sleep in terms of like breath work, or do you do any of that type of stuff, Anthony?
No, not like breath work or anything. I probably should. I know it is beneficial, but just usually, getting comfortable, nice and warm. I don't really, me personally, in terms of like when I'm tired, I can go to sleep. Uh, it's when I'm not tired that I'll end up staying up pretty late.
Yeah, very late.
Yeah. So it's getting to the point of like if I want to actually go to sleep, just kind of lay down and pretend like I'm asleep until I go to sleep. But that doesn't always work. So
Yeah. For the listeners, Anthony, uh, Anthony and I talk every day, and it would be like 5 p.m. my time or 4 p.m. even, and I would know that it's probably like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. So I'll still send him the message that I'm about to send him, not thinking that he would respond, but within 2 minutes he responds. I'm like, what are you doing up? What are you doing up? And yeah, it's fascinating because I'm well different, but Georgie and I, like I'm in bed by 8:39 most nights, so it's totally different.
we just got a little bit different schedule. I mean, we're usually in bed
Yeah,
like we put Lily down around like 10 or something. It's just like it's not late or early. It's just like that's when she goes to sleep and then she wakes up a little bit later, so she doesn't wake up super early in the morning, which is nice. If she really, I'm on her schedule. If she woke up super in the early in the morning, I'd have to go to bed sooner to get up to like
Yeah,
get her
exactly.
there, you know.
Yeah.
So um, it's a little different, and I've done it before where like I spent months or years where I would be up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, but I'd have to be going to bed at before 10.
Yeah.
Um, whereas now it's more, I usually get to bed around midnight to 1 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that I have, I don't know if I've spoken to you a lot about this, Anthony, but I've got an app called Metatopia. It's pretty much just a meditation app, and it's got so many different programs or things that you can do before bed or when you wake up in the morning. And that's one thing that I do, like my last thing before I go to bed, is I have a 10 to 15 minute kind of like meditation, um, not self, recorded, program that I do. And feel like that's really, it helps me. I personally think I'm getting better sleep now, and that's something that I actually did after my Amsterdam race, which, well, didn't really help because I didn't sleep until like 3 a.m. after Amsterdam. But yeah, it's something like if you do struggle with post race like sleep, just think to yourself like, from my view, try to get into a really quiet position as quickly as possible and try to unwind from there. And it could be as simple as starting a meditation thing or breath work, or not even doing that. Like even like talking to someone who really calms you. And that's something that Georgie does for me is like, I remember after Amsterdam, it was like 4 a.m. for her. It really calmed me by like afterwards, jumping on the phone to her I'm pretty sure we spoke for like probably 2 hours. Um, but doing something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I actually think that's great. I think one of the things you want to do, guys, is after a tough race, after something like that, go ahead, try to get your body calm. You have a lot of cortisol, a lot of stress running through you at that time. So the first thing you need to do is get calm. And some of the things that like help me with that are, like I said, after your cool down, like maybe just go take a hot shower or a hot bath or something. Let your body relax into it, and you can then get somewhere comfortable with someone comfortable, whatever it is for you. If you have a meditation app like JK's saying, or some like soothing sounds, whatever it is, that, and it might take you a couple times to actually learn what's best for you. And
Yeah.
why we talk about the post race, why it's so important. One thing I want to say is we like to, yes, perform well at these races, like that's the point, but you also want to, you don't just go perform well and then do nothing with it. You just had this big performance. That performance can lead into being part of your training. So, okay, hey, look, I just had this big performance. Why can't I count that as a big, massive output for my training, this high intensity session? And now I want to incorporate that. Well, if you want to incorporate that, if you want to get the most out of it and everything, you need to absorb that fitness. You need to be able to take that in and use it. So, doing the cool down, doing the things afterwards, making sure you move the day after, and doing your recovery stuff to like help promote that. That is very important for this. And then instead of that one event being like the end all be all of a sudden that one event was just a data point leading to your next one, right? Like, oh, look, there we go. That was part of my fitness. And now I know, hey, I like, this was 6 weeks before the last one. I did really well. Maybe I'll try that again. Like, look, you have these big efforts, you have these big outputs, the stress on your body, you recover, like, and all of a sudden instead of peaking, you plateau, and that's what we're looking for. We don't want to peak and then come back down. We want to go up and then like absorb and use it. So we go level across so we can build it on top of that. And that's kind of something really
Yeah.
important we like to do.
Especially if you're like someone who have three, four, even more Hyrox races throughout your season. Um, I personally think that's great because as soon as one's finished, you've got another one to look forward to, and it's your ability to make sure that you recover as quickly as possible so that you can, again, as Anthony just said, like um use the fitness that you've put your body through during that race and adapt to it, and then get ready to um
Yeah.
get back on the bandwagon and start training for your next one.
Yeah. It's just a
Um,
step on the ladder. It's a step on your staircase. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
Make it a piece. At that point, it's the highest step on the staircase, but you still got higher to go. So the next one will come, you know? Um,
Exactly. So
Anyway, I think that's good for where we're at. I want to say thank you to everyone. If you get a chance to like, comment, subscribe, follow, whatever it is, we really appreciate it. It'll help us reach more people and help us get out there and in front of more people. We can help. As well as I wanted to read on our last couple videos, we had a comment from Tony Curtis. Great episode, fellas. Keep it up. From episode 23, tapering in that one piece of equipment. And then on our last episode, Kevin Thews said, if Anthony wants to do an internship as a physical therapist, he's welcome in our office. Thanks for your insights. So if I want to go become a physical therapist, I have an internship offer. Uh,
in Kevin is from Germany. Is he
yeah, so
German?
in Germany.
From Germany.
There we go.
Well,
And before we sign off, JK, you changed your Instagram name, so we
I
got to
knew you were going to bring that up.
yeah,
I did. I
got to make
did.
sure we
I
say it
changed
right.
it to just my name. Well, it's jk.jameskelly now. So if you want to reach out, jk.jameskelly now. What?
I'll go change our outro so it says that, but you can find us at the Hybrid Engine
Oh,
as well. But you can look up the Hybrid Engine.
hybrid engine. Thanks for listening once again, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Thank you for listening to the Hybrid Coaching Podcast. If you have any questions you'd like your hosts to answer, or if you'd like to reach out and ask us any questions or inquire about training, please reach out to James Kelly on Instagram at jk.jameskelly. That's jk.jameskelly on Instagram. Or you can find him, Georgie Vesley and James Kelly, on YouTube. You can also find me, Anthony Parasini, at The Hybrid Engine on Instagram or The Hybrid Engine on YouTube. Thank you again for listening and have a great day.